All right, so in this lesson, we're going to look at the interactions between species in a little bit more detail, and we're going to focus on some particular super species, some species which are cut above the rest. They are more precious. They are more beneficial to the environment and ecosystem than others. Okay, two kinds of species we're going to look at today. Species which we call keystone species and species which are called ecosystem engineers. And they're similar but slightly different. So we're going to have a look at those. Now, you probably have already looked at keystone species in the previous lesson. If you haven't, please make sure you watch these two YouTube videos. There's links in yesterday's lesson plan. Please watch them. They are fantastic videos, and they really explain keystone species and how keystone species interact with their food chain and their food webs and how they affect the entire system. It's just absolutely fascinating. It's one of my favorite things to look at, those trophic cascades, the effect that one organism at the top of the food chain has on all the trophic levels underneath. It's just fascinating. And what we're going to look at next is ecosystem engineers. Ecosystem engineers. So the first thing that I want you to do is have a look at eastern barred bandicoots. Okay, so here's a link to Lauren, my girlfriend's research on eastern barred bandicoots, which is talking about how eastern barred bandicoots are ecosystem engineers. They engineer the ecosystem. Now, when we're talking about ecosystem engineers, we're saying they change the physical environment that they live in. They alter not only the living things around them, but also the physical environment. So the way that eastern barred bandicoots do this is, if you read this article on The Conversation, it's one little bandicoot can dig up to an elephant's worth of soil a year. So this little bandicoot digs an elephant's worth of soil every year. And what this does for the ecosystem is it breaks through that hard crust at the surface of the soil. It aerates the soil just like a farmer plowing a field. It increases the amount of water that can soak into the soil. And it also allows the diggings themselves allow places for seeds to fall in and for seeds to germinate. And so where there's no bandicoots, you find that there's less plant growth and less germination, less seeds sprouting than where there are bandicoots. And so these bandicoots are ecosystem engineers. They engineer the environment. They build the environment and create a structure. And without the bandicoots, if they disappeared, like the eastern barred bandicoot is classified as extinct in the wild. We still have a few in captivity, but without them, we lose that effect. We lose that role in the ecosystem that they played. Let's have a look at a couple other examples. Earthworms do a remarkably similar thing. Okay? By moving through the soil, they aerate it and they allow spaces for water to flow and for plant roots to easily move around so they can find water more easily. So where there are earthworms, the plants are more healthy, and gardeners know this, but this happens in our forest as well. And not only that, but they're also decomposers. So they are breaking down those nutrients and returning them back to the soil so plants can again access those nutrients. So earthworms do it. Whales are a fascinating one. Whales are ecosystem engineers in the ocean. And what they do is they dive really deep down below where light can penetrate, and they feed on krill, and then they come back up, and when they come back up, they poo everywhere, and all those nutrients are brought to the surface, and the phytoplankton there are able to grab these nutrients and through photosynthesis turn these into sugars that they can use, and they then begin to to begin the food chain of the ocean. So without whales bringing these nutrients up, what you'd find is there'd be less life in the ocean because the phytoplankton would not be able to grow as much. And so they've actually found that whales increase the number of fish and krill, and even though they eat so many, they actually increase the number many times over. And if you're interested, look this up on YouTube. There's a fantastic video, and I'll actually link it and make sure you watch it. It is fantastic. So that's kind of our look at ecosystem engineers and keystone species, and hopefully have a clear understanding of that. If you don't, again, onto YouTube and look up great examples. Another one, obviously, we can list a few more. The beaver is a great example of cutting down trees, damming rivers, and reducing the flow of those rivers, allowing habitat for so many other things. The beavers provide habitat for so many different organisms. So that's just another example.